So, Nuala, what's your take on the unabashed expansion of the Saudi investment fund into Silicon Valley?
Well, it's obviously a hot market, and there's lots of foreign investment in Silicon Valley and across the United States tech sector. The concern really is one of values and whose values are driving the creation of new products, services, and apps. We've seen just recently some outcry over the creation or the support of an app led by the Saudi government that allows people to track female associates or relatives. These are concerning kinds of applications, and we would obviously want to espouse democratic values and values of equality and liberty. That's part of my organization's name, is Democracy and Technology. So the question for me is one of what kind of values are we embedding in the technology in our daily lives?
Do you think these companies, which have certainly done business with the Saudis in the past, will change their tune?
Well, this has been an age-old debate since there's been a tech sector in the United States as they've expanded and done business in other countries. And it is also a conflict a little bit of laws and of cultures. The international internet allows for the export of U.S.-centric values by U.S. companies and vice versa from other countries and other values and other companies. So we're at the conversational point about Saudi Arabia that we've been at about China and other countries and how they run their internal operations and how they use technology.
So, where do you think this goes? There has been a lot of private talk whispering about whether companies should or shouldn't take SoftBank's money because so much of SoftBank's Vision Fund money comes from the Saudi government. Do you think this issue dies, or does it continue to be an issue? Because I certainly have yet to hear someone say, we didn't take that $500 million because it came from SoftBank.
I think it's very difficult when there's that kind of money on the table to make those kind of choices, I'm sure, for the corporate leadership. But I do think the conversation is absolutely going to continue about the values and the norms and the democratic principles embedded in the products and services that companies are creating, and the sources not only of funds, but of revenue from the sales of those products. And I see those calls coming as much from within Silicon Valley and the employees of many of these companies as I do from outside, from civil society and groups like mine. So I think this is a conversation that we're just beginning in many parts of this country and really around the world. This is not the last we'll see of it.
Meantime, I want to talk to you about trust of the tech industry more broadly. There's a recent poll out conducted by YouGov, which shows that Facebook is one of the country's least trusted institution, right down at the bottom by Congress, whereas Google and Amazon are towards the top. And yet Facebook just reported earnings, and it keeps growing. It doesn't seem to be losing users. People are still using it. How do you square that?
Well, it's a terrific platform in many ways, and it's useful and it's free. I do think that we are having a conversation about the use of information and the use of personal information by companies of all kinds, not just in the tech sector. So I think that may account for some of the difference in the various brands' trust factors. But I think we are in a position now as a country to have a conversation about the use of personal information by all companies and the respect and the dignity that companies allow their customers, their employees, their partners. I think we're going to see comprehensive privacy law in the United States in the near term to put us back on the global playing field about privacy and data.
How much do you think consumers actually want comprehensive privacy regulation?
I think that the pendulum has swung very far in the direction that more and more average users, citizens of this country, realize that they're not necessarily getting a fair deal as people in other parts of the world are getting, even from some of our own companies, in the protection and use of data and the disclosure of how those data are being used by the company. I think that there is a very practical reality. People want to use these services and they want to be part of the internet economy, but they want to know a little bit more and have a little bit more balance of power between the individual and the companies themselves.
So then is that trend on a collision course with the business model of these companies that make money based on how much data we share with them and how much they can squeeze more value out of it?
I think data is very much a source of power for many internet companies, and I think there will be real changes and kind of a real come to the table meeting of all of the companies and how they're using data and how the various business models work, I think hopefully we're going to see a race to the top in the conversation, which has been begun by a number of CEOs, not only in Silicon Valley, but across the United States, in what their commitments are to the use of data about their customers.
Can the U.S. catch up to Europe at this point?
I'm not sure we want to only catch up to Europe, meaning that may not be the perfect model for the United States. They have a very different kind of enforcement mechanism and model than we do. But I think that there are global principles about dignity, about transparency, about accountability, about how these companies explain what they do and get consumer buy-in and not just consent, but really do the right thing. Because I think the notice and choice model that we've all relied on with lots of privacy policies is really a thing of the past. As technology becomes embedded in the walls of our houses and the dashboards of our car, we want to know that we're being treated fairly and that there are certain uses that are inbounds and there are certain uses that are simply out. So I think we can do this, and it'll look up like a slightly different American model, but the principles will be the same.